If you look like me, your life matters.
This has really become a global sort of issue that everyone is talking about, including here in Canada.
The Black Lives Matter movement is everywhere right now. You've probably been hearing about it for years. It's all because the killing of unarmed black people continues to happen. And it's really caught on since George Floyd died in police custody. There have been riots and protests all over the US and even here in Canada. These are massive demonstrations. So let's see if we can get some more insight into what Black Lives Matter is and how it relates to you and me.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
My name is Jacob Calendar Prasad. As of Sunday, I became the lead organizer of Black Alliance and the protest movement that we've been doing in Vancouver.
Obviously, we're talking to a lot of kids right now. How would you explain Black Lives Matter?
If you look like me and you feel a certain pain sometimes towards what your friends say, and you wonder what's going on in the world, and you wonder why these effects are happening on the news from officers in the States, we are trying to amplify that your life matters.
The Black Lives Matter movement started in the US. So why do you feel that it's important for Canadians to be involved in it?
Black Lives Matter in the US is 100% needed. The United States and their communities, they are getting people, killing them every single day. They're having racial injustice against them from police. And so when we say Black Lives Matter, we all believe in that word, Black Lives Matter, that we're so very passionate about that. It's time to not only just address that issue, but address that there are so many other things that Canadians, people of color, we deal with on a social basis, on a daily basis. So young people can now get to understand in a better way, in an easier way, what we're dealing with in 2020.
The police have been accused of using too much force. But the police's response to that is that at certain occasions, they need to use that much force. What is your response to that?
My response is, when you look at cases like Tamir Rice, who was a 12-year-old playing in the park with a gun, and they came out of the car without even asking questions and shot him straight to death. There is not need for excessive force. There is not need to shoot. There is not need to taser or pepper spray. And it's why there's an outcry of support right now for this movement. It's why people are having this discussion. When George Floyd got choked and he was on the ground asking, "I can't breathe," that wasn't needed. If there was a gun actually pointed at these officers, then your life isn't threatened. But if you do not see a weapon, then peacefulness is the best. If violence is what we're going to use, and people are going to fight violence with violence, then we're going to be in this strong, volatile cycle, and we're never going to change. But if police start using the peaceful manner to approach things and a less excessive force, and actually open themselves up to talk to the communities and get to know the people in their communities and build that relationship with us, we can move forward with less excessive force, with less violence against people of color. And that is the dream that I would wish that we would all have one day in the future.
Now that we have some perspective from someone on the ground at the protest, let's take a look at how we got here. What do you think differentiates Black Lives Matter, if anything, from Black activists in the past?
We can think of it almost as a social media moment. You know, I know, for example, Black Lives Matter Toronto, they would send out Facebook messages, right? Meet us at the corner of Yonge and Bloor, and we're gonna have a rally there. If we look at the nature of today's marches, the people in the marches, you see it's a multi-racial, multi-ethnic moment. Whereas you think of the civil rights movement in the 60s was predominantly Black people marching.
As a historian, what do you think the key bits of history that Canadian kids should know to help them better understand Black Lives Matter today?
In 1921, the Black Wall Street, as it was called, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it was destroyed by white people who were so jealous of Black success. Between 1960, let's say 1964 and 1972, We have the destruction, again, another destruction of Africville in Nova Scotia. Beautiful, beautiful piece of real estate, oceanfront estate, destroyed and taken over by the city. And Black people moved into public housing. And of course, that has had tragic consequences. Then another key moment is the Sir George William University computer riot in 1969 in Montreal, right here in Canada, where Black students who were protesting the low marks that they were receiving, these were, very smart students, they were deported, they were jailed, spent years in jail, or were thrown from the schools, were expelled from the schools. Of course, there's a civil rights movement. We think of the marches of Martin Luther King, of Malcolm X, of Rosa Parks. Kids were a big part of this movement. We talk about the students sitting, we talk about the Kids March in Birmingham. Children as young as 7 years old participated in those marches.
What would you tell Black kids who are worried or scared about their future?
That's a good question, and perhaps it's the most important question in our interview, Elijah. The power is within us. So the fist symbolizes that power that's within us, especially when we organize with other folks, especially when we engage in collective action.
The massive protests that are ongoing may have been sparked from the death of George Floyd, but they are also a result of decades of racial injustice, Black inequality, and police brutality. Black Lives Matter is a movement that seeks to change that, not only in the US, but also in Canada and across the globe. Hopefully you guys learned something, and if you did, share your thoughts at CBC Kids News at cbc.ca. I'm Elijah Sandyford for CBC Kids News. Peace.